It was my intention to be with you live, to be able to say a few words of Azkara for Rabbi Dovid, Sharfman, Zechetzayv the Bracha, but due to circumstances way beyond our control, we're going to have to rely on the technology to deliver the message. There is a fascinating Rabbi in this week's Parsha, Parshas Kisisa. We all know, of course, of the story of the Egel, how Klal Yisrael sinned, and Moshe Rabbeinu went up to daven on their behalf. But the Rabbi has an interesting take on how that tefillah worked, why it was successful. And he says it wasn't the koach of the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu that carried the day. Rather, he says as follows: Shalidveikus hashgacha al hatovim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's great concern and involvement with good people, you nishmar ma'avehem meharos hanachanos lavelem. The friends, the people that these great people love, are protected from evil coming upon them, even if they deserve it. Why? So that there should be no pain and worry on the part of this good person who cares about them. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, let me be, hanichali. That it should not be bad in your eyes if I destroy them. If it would have been bad in the eyes of Moshe where it was, then they would be protected and saved so that Moshe shouldn't feel the pain. And that's exactly what happened. Vayachal Moshe, etc. So think about that. What that means is that Klal Yisrael really deserved to be destroyed, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, like Kalo Sam Kirega. And there was no redemption. And it wasn't the tefillah of Moshe that changed anything. But Moshe would feel terrible. And his individual tsar, his individual pain, saved the entire Klal Yisrael, changed the entire course of history. One person, granted, it wasn't a simple, normal person. It was Moshe Rabbeinu, but still one person. His personal tsar changed the entire course of history. A very, very similar idea, I believe, can be found in the Medrash Rabbah in Esther. At the end of Parsha Ches, the Medrash Rabbah recounts the tefillah that Esther said before she entered the palace of Achashverosh. And she said as follows: Vatomer, Vatispalel, Vatomer, Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Hashem the God of Israel, Hashem Mashaltem Mimei Kedem U'Brasas Ha'olam. So this is a proper way to begin a tefillah with Divrei Shevach. Azorna Amascha, please help your maidservant. Asher Nisharti Yisoma B'li Av V'Eim. I am an orphan without a mother and a father. I'm like a poor person begging at the doors from house to house. So too, I am begging Rachamim as I go past the windows in the palace of Achashverosh. And the Medrash continues a little later. Save your impoverished servant. And save Klal Yisrael. You who are the father of orphans, stand to the right-hand side of this orphan. Then the Medrash continues in Parsha Tes, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers the tefillah. It says, Vayar Elokeinu, our God saw, Vayachmal Amo, he had mercy on his people, Vayifein letzar hayisoma asher batcha ba. And he turned to the pain of this orphan who trusted in him. So here you have the fate of all of Klal Yisrael hanging in the balance. There's a gezeira lahashmid laharog lahabe minar v'adzoken taf v'noshim b'yom echad. Esther is being mispal on behalf of the entire nation, and she mentions her own personal pain as a yitzoma. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu answers the tefillah, this was part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's cheshbon. It says, Vayifen letzar hayisoma and Vayachmal alamo. They're both part of the cheshbon. Where does the pain of Esther individually come into the cheshbon compared to all of Klal Yisrael? Not only that, she focuses on the fact that she was a Yisoma, and I don't mean to take anything away from that, but as far as Yisomos go, she had it better than most. She was adopted by her uncle Mordechai and was raised in the house of Mordechai. She wasn't abandoned on the street. True, there's no replacement for a mother and a father. And obviously she felt the pain of a Yisoma, but not to the greatest extent that any Yisoma out there. It was rather within the realm of Yisomos, a little bit on the lower end of the scale. And yet, she cites that pain as part of the cheshbon to answer her tefillah to save the entire Jewish nation, and in fact, it worked. But also, vayifen atzar hayisom azos. We see from here the Torah's perspective on the value of any particular individual. True, again, we're talking about great tzaddikim. We're talking about Mordechai, we're talking about, Esther, and we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. But, sof kosov, it's one person. And that makes such a huge cheshbon. We could extrapolate from there that even regular people are a lot more important than we often give them credit for. The significance of each yachid is of vital importance. We don't know who's going to be the next Moshe Rabbeinu or Esther in our generation. But even if they're not, every individual really counts. And this was a special midah that Rabbi Sharfman had. He cared about every individual, every yachid. I remember, it's not so well known, everyone identifies Rabbi Sharfman with the Beis Medrash, Yeshiva Toras Chaim, which he was there for so many years. But he actually started out as a high school Rebbe. When we recruited him, he came originally as a high school Rebbe. We later moved him up. And his first year in Florida, there was an individual in his shir, shall we say, had challenges. The fact that he had challenges is one thing, but he also presented challenges to the rest of us. And he was really giving Rabbi Sharfman a very hard time, being very disruptive, very defiant, very outlandish behaviors. One day he showed up, he dyed his hair green. Showed up in Yeshiva in the morning with green hair. That's not so typical. It got to the point that we were considering disinviting him from continuing in the yeshiva. And the person who came and advocated on his behalf was Rabbi Sharfman, making arguments and pleading what's going to happen to him, and what if we tried this, and what if we tried that. His life would have been so much easier if this kid left. And yet he was pushing and pushing, and the truth be told, the kid probably stayed in the yeshiva. We did have to ask him to leave eventually, but he probably stayed an extra month due to Rabbi Sharfman's efforts. Not concerned about the difficulties he was presenting to himself. I remember when the early days of the Beis Medrash, Rabbi Sharfman was the Rebbe and Mashkiach. So let's just say we did not have the elite students necessarily. Some of them were, but some of them were not. And some of them had a hard time keeping the Siddharim and holding down their chavrusas. He spent hours and hours trying to help each yachid work something out. He should have a chavrusa. I used to joke with him, you have two full-time jobs. You're a Rebbe and Mashkiach in the Beis Medrash, and you're a chavrusa shachrit. They're two full-time jobs. But he cared so much about each individual that he took the time and the effort and the energy to try to help each individual. And that is part of the secret of his success. It's not just that he puts in so much effort, but it also affects the receptivity of the Talmidim. When the Talmidim know that you care about them, it's a whole different story. You have a completely different type of hashpah. There's a saying that comes from secular sources, but yesh chacham b'umos. It says they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Shiva used to bring this out from a Bartanura that actually is quoting a Trumas Hadesha. They're addressing the question that many Rishonim ask: why, when it came to Makas Bechoros, did HaKadosh Baruch Hu present the message in Mitzrayim, in the palace of Mitzrayim, when every place else Moshe had to leave the city because the city was a Makam Tuma, it wasn't roy for the presence of the Shekhinah. And the Trumas Hadeshin says that the reason was that this particular message showed Klal Yisrael how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loved them, and therefore it was so vitally important to deliver it as soon as possible and to show that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is even willing to enter into this Makam Tumah because he wants to help Klal Yisrael. Because Makas Bechoros was the Makkah that was going to get them out of Mitzrayim. And the Rosh Hashiva asked, and he contrasted with, let's say, the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. People look at the mitzvah as an obligation. So the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, Moshe had to go outside the city. Makas B'choros was inside. But the Yeshiva asked, we know that a mitzvah is also l'tovas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need a Korban Pesach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need any of our mitzvahs. The purpose of the mitzvah is for our benefit. Every mitzvah he gives us is the greatest favor. So why couldn't the Korban Pesach also be delivered in Mitzrayim? And he answered, it's true, but people don't recognize it. People don't always see it. Sometimes, incorrectly, but it is human nature, they view the mitzvahs as a burden rather than as a gift. So they wouldn't feel the Av of Hashem when they hear the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. But they would feel the Av of Hashem when they hear the message of Makas B'choros. Which means that it's important that they know this message, that they hear the Av of Hashem. Why? They'll learn the Torah differently. Then they'll accept the mitzvah differently. And that's what happened. People knew that Rabbi Sharfman cared about them. And therefore, they listened to what he had to say with a whole different ear. It's a different message. There's quite a fascinating medrash in the beginning of Vayikra. The medrash darshans Vayikra al Moshe, and listen to what the medrash says. And the Mepharshim actually struggle with it, and I'm not going to spend time on some of the technical difficulties in reading the message. Just get to the medrash, just get to the gist of it. The Mashal Melech Shenichlas Medina. Mashal Vayikra al Moshe, Hashem called Moshe. It's Mashal to a Melech, a king that enters the countryside. V'imo dukasim, v'parchin, v'stratlitin. Don't ask me. Different kinds of officers and ministers. They don't know who is the most beloved. All the entourage of the king, they don't know who is his most beloved. But then they see the king turns his face and wants to talk dafka to one of them. He's the most beloved. When it came Matan Torah, everybody went to the Har Sinai. Moshe, Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, Shimon, Zakanim. We don't know who's the most beloved. It's the one that Kadosh Baruch Hu calls and speaks to. And the Medrash continues, who does he speak to first? Lo im agrom niman shel medina. Isn't it the agronom, the person who's in charge of the parnasa, finance minister, so to speak? Because he takes care of the livelihood of the Medina. So it is very difficult because the people knew that Moshe was beloved because he went up in Har Sinai to get the Torah. It's true they were all called to the foot of Har Sinai, but only Moshe ascended the mountain. So the Mepharshim say that isn't such a proof. Because going up the mountain to receive the Torah meant that Moshe was the greatest Navi, Moshe was the greatest Talmud Chacham, he was the greatest Chacham, and he was most suited to receive the Torah. But it doesn't mean that he was most beloved. But Vayikra Moshe, that shows that he was beloved. Why was he beloved? Because he was like this agronomon who took care of the parnasa. And the Marzu, in one of his explanations, says it's a person who provides sustenance for the people. So Moshe brought them the man, Moshe brought them the slav, the water, he sweetened the water for them. So he provided them with parnasa. So it seems a little strange. He's the Avi HaNevi'im, the greatest Chacham, the person who's most suited to receive the Torah in Har Sinai. The whole purpose of the creation was for the Torah being given on Har Sinai. Yom Hashishi Kol Olam Kula Tulim Va'omed, until that day. But he's not necessarily the most beloved. So what makes him the most beloved? He fed the people. So what? Because he, by doing that, demonstrated to Klal Yisrael that he, and by extension HaKadosh Baruch Hu, loves them and takes care of their needs. And now they could receive the Torah. That's what made him the most beloved. That's what made him the most chashuv in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, according to this interpretation. Because it is so important that the people who are you trying to reach with words of Torah understand that you care about them, you care about their needs. And Rabbi Sharfman used to take care of their physical needs. I remember schlepping kids to the doctor. I don't know if I should talk about that in this environment, when they needed it, and so on. But to tell you the truth, there's a downside to this. As the Mesilas Yesharim famously says, this world is a place of milchama panim v'achar. If you have a very strong hargasha of love of the people, love of the Talmidim, there's a danger that you could become too much of a buddy, and you become too much of a friend, and you reduce the dignity and the kavod haTorah that a Rebbe needs to have. Because another vital component in reaching a Talmud is not only that they appreciate how much you love them, but they also have to have a certain kavod, and I would call it an ema, not a fear in the physical sense, but an emes hakavod, a certain awe, a certain respect for the Rebbe. And if you break that down and become too much of a friend and too much of a, you also can't be much beyond the people. And the Rosh Hashivas Zatzal used to quote the Sefarnu, where the Torah gives the mitzvah that a Kohen is not allowed to become Tameh. And the Sefarnu says, "V'atam shali Tameh HaKohen," the reason why a Kohen should not be Tameh, Kim Likrovav, except for his relatives, Ki Amnam HaKohen Hu Baal Ba'amav. A Kohen is like a master in his nation, Lahavin Laharos, to teach Klal Yisrael. Ki Sifsei Kohen Yishmeru Das, V'Torah Yivaksham Mipiyah, Pasuk in Navi. So the role of a Kohen is to teach Torah. V'roi le'ish kazeh linhog nesius. A person like that has to have a certain nesius, a certain loftiness, a certain elevation. Ki hechet l'shtam in so that people will listen to him. Ve'en roi sheyichalel hachanoso el hamikdash v'kadashav. So it's not proper for him to profane his preparation for kedusha, k'dei lechabed hamesim, to give kavod to the mace, habilti krovim, unless it's his mishpacha. Shehakvura v'ahesed lameis heim yikra d'shichi. It's covered for the mace. Amam lekrovim, but to relatives hiter litamei ki kvodam hu kvodam, because honoring his relatives is an honor to him. That's why. But otherwise, he wouldn't even be permitted to be tamei for his krovim. So Yeshiva asked a very powerful question. We don't really relate so well to the concept of tumah being a pechisas hakavod, because we don't really have these halachas in a practical sense today. But let's grant that there is a certain pechisas hakavod, a lowering of his nesiyos, if he participates in the levaya and becomes tameh. But look at the opportunity for connecting. When a person is in this time of grief, he needs chizuk, he needs to reach out to people. Any practicing Rav will tell you that's a time that you could reach a person and develop a kesher when they're in a tzara. So there's so much upside. So wouldn't it be worth it to go and dafka go to levaya and become tameh to show these people how much you care for them, how close you are to them, and establish that kesher so that they'll listen to what you have to say? And apparently the answer is no. There's a balance. You have to show a kesher, but you have to maintain that nesiyas, that regal impression, that cover. It works in a negative sense too, but I think it demonstrates to us the impact. There's a series of sefarnos on the parsha of a Navi Sheker. If a person comes, he's a Navi Sheker, and he performs miracles and tells people to serve about a Zara, so the Sefarno explains that you know for sure that it's Sheker, and you shouldn't follow him. And he says, Ki menaseh Hashem lekechem, it's a test. Ki kishetashvu la'oyev, if you look at this Navi as your enemy, as hamidaber neged elokechem, as he's speaking against Hashem, then tiyeh menusim lefanav la'avu, you will show Hashem that you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you have to view this guy as an enemy. And the pasuk says, "Achrei Hashem lekecha teilechu v'osol tiro," and you should fear him. So what does it mean v'osol tiro? Says the Sefarnu, "Afal pi shahaya osa navi etzecha kvar adam chashuv v'nora." Even though this prophet was in your eyes prior to this event, an adam chashuv and a nora, he might have been a legitimate navi beforehand, or a big Talmud Chacham and a leader. Umegazem ata. And now he kind of is overwhelming you. Tivatal yiras hanavi minei yiras hakel yisbarach. You need to nullify your fear of the Navi because of your fear for Hashem. What you see from this Sefarnu is this feeling of awe that you have for this Navi before he became a Navi Sheker has the potential of influencing you. Even though you know everything else that was said in the pasuk. You know that it's Vadai Sheker, and you know that he's an Oyev of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it should be an Oyev of yours. But nevertheless, but but I have this view towards him, this feeling of awe and kavod. It's hard not to listen to him, and you have to focus on your yiras Elokim to be mevatel the yira you have for that Navi. What do you see? You see that sense of awe is a very, very powerful hashpah. So there's a very tricky balance. You want to show your love and your closeness to your Talmidim, but there has to be a certain nesiyus, a certain chashivas, a certain kavod. And this is something that Rabbi Sharfman excelled in. It was an amazing thing to behold. He conducted himself with tremendous dignity, and he never lowered that kavod. At the same time, he had some tremendous mesirus and tremendous love, and the Talmidim knew it. Talmidim felt very close to him. They understood that ahava, but they didn't look at him as a buddy. They looked at him as a Rabbi, as a person to look up to, a certain nesiyus, a certain kavod. And that really was the secret of his success. Not such a secret, but that was what made him so successful as a mechanech. And I focused my remarks now on his role as a mechanech. Certainly that's how I knew him best. In life in general, he was like that. But there is a certain message, I think, that we can learn from him, not only as mechanchim, but as parents, and everyone has opportunities to be bali hashpah, that we need to be able to follow that balance, to demonstrate our ahava, our love, at the same time to present a certain kavod Torah, a certain dignity, a certain chashivas. And if we learn a little bit from that, his memory should be a schus for all of us who follow in his footsteps. He should be a melis yosher for his wonderful rebbetzin, for his entire mishpacha, for his yeshiva, for all of Klal Yisrael. We should be zalcha to the gula shleima b'mhera v'yameinu. Amen.
That's the first thing before we fully begin. I'd like to thank the Sharfman family for this opportunity. It's a kavod to give this speech, be part of this Azkara, to I guess try in some way to live up to a Talmud's appreciation of Rabbi Sharfman, and thank the yeshiva for hosting this event. You know, here at yeshiva, and I can say myself personally, we miss Rabbi Sharfman. We miss Rabbi Sharfman all the time, and he was so much a part of any Talmud's life. And I think that's true on a daily basis. But all the more so, anyone who's tuning in now, the reason why we're doing this via video is because not just our communities, but the entire world is in crisis. And especially at a time like this, there's so much going on, so much craziness. I think we all really miss Rabbi Sharfman. And we all would love to hear his take of the situation, what's going on, what's the message, what does it mean for us, just to sit and schmooze with him about, I dare say the word corona, that we all miss. I would just like to depict that feeling. Obviously, it's not comparable, but one lightheaded moment that I experienced with Rabbi Sharfman in quote-unquote a crisis. It was summer's man. The yeshiva spent time in upstate New York, and we decided it would be good for the chevra that we take off one afternoon and we do a yeshiva trip. So we went hiking. And what ended up as a yeshiva trip, everyone going hiking, somehow it broke up into groups. The group that I was in was Rabbi Sharfman, Zatzal, and Baruch Chaim. Rabbi Naiman was in the group, so myself. I remember Moshe Rubin, Meir Atar, Pinchas Rakov, Yehuda Kasira. Great chevra of guys together. And we were hiking, trying to get to some waterfall, some spot. Okay, and the hike's going and going and going. And at a certain point, we realized there ain't no waterfall here. We realized we were lost. And it was very hot in the middle of the summer. We had a certain amount of water. And I could speak amongst myself, A few of us were going and ashamed to tell me them. We don't spend our time much taking hikes. And it was at the point, there was a certain amount of frustration that we're lost. That it's going to take X amount of time, who knows how much time to get back. We don't know where we were going. There's no one around, there's no cell phone service, we're all stuck. And I remember the feeling in your stomach, like, oh my gosh, how do we get ourselves into this mess? And at that point, I remember Moshe Rubin brought up a topic. Let's call it Nili de Alma. Those who were there know what we were talking about. He brought up a topic, nothing to do with the hike, just general life, society. And Rabbi Sharfman went on a rant. He spoke about that topic with feeling and emotion, and we all forgot. As long as Rabbi Sharfman was talking, we were debating, we were talking about this topic. We forgot our woes, we forgot our issues, and what was, till a moment before Rabbi Sharfman started speaking, a time which we all wanted to forget, became just another memorable moment spending time with Rabbi Sharfman. And I think that depicts the type of person he was. You wanted to be around him. What he said was so meaningful. What he said had such an impact on our lives in just small things, but it made such a big difference. When faced with giving a speech, Azkara, when I first accepted it, it was a no-brainer, of course. The Sharfman family wants me to do it. And to be honest, I have spoken a lot about Rabbi Sharfman. Maybe not in this exact setting, but I thought, what could be so hard? Till Rabbi Ephraim Palgan said to me, oh, you're speaking of Rabbi Sharfman's thing. It's probably your toughest speech you ever gave in your life, huh? I do speak quite often, and I think I gave a lot of, big challenging speeches. But as in preparation for this speech, those words, tormented me. Yeah, this just might be the toughest task. To speak to people, and give an appreciation in Azkara is a very hard thing to do. And I don't think I'm fully up for the task, but I'll try. Makes it even harder is I'm doing this via video. Okay, Baruch Hashem, I have, friends, Talmidim in the audience, but still, it's not the same as speaking live. It's also not the same as speaking, Valmor, Rabbi Grumblatz, the other speaker. I don't know what he's saying. I didn't really talk to him about his speech. And there's a certain vibe in a room when you get up to speak after somebody else. It's lost in cyberspace somewhere. So you won't have that either. But I do think I have a unique perspective to speak about Rabbi Sharfman. In thinking about my relation with him, I really have 3 dimensions of a relationship. And probably 2 of the 3 most people don't have. First dimension that I have with Rabbi Sharfman is I think I was one of his first Talmidim. Rabbi Sharfman, I believe his first teaching job was teaching Bekiyas to the 9th grade of Mesivta Chafetz Chaim in Queens in the year 1992. And I was in that class. And as a Bekiyas Rebbe, someone who came in and out, he had a pretty big impact on my life. My friends and I had a tremendous kesher with him. We felt close to him. I remember the yeshiva had a Shabbaton. We were in Queens for Shabbos. My friends felt nothing, unannounced. We could stop by Rabbi Sharfman's house Shabbos afternoon, like we were ninth graders. What do we know what Shabbos afternoon is to a Rabbi, Kol Yingerman, he's got a mishpacha. We just uninvited knocked on his door, I believe on Burn Street, and we visited him. The Rebbetzin brought out ices. We sat with him, schmoozed with him. That was a kasha he created in his first chinuch job a Rebbe teaching B'kiyas in the Sifta Chavetz Chaim. So my perspective as a young ninth grader and my perspective as a Rabbi Sharfman is just starting off in Chinuch. Fast forward a little less than 10 years. I was older bacher in Queens, and they needed somebody to go branch in Miami. This is my second dimension. What's interesting, half a year earlier, I got a phone call from then Rosh Hashiva there, Rabbi Grumblatt, asking me to please come down. So my friends were going to branch. I was a first-year guy back in Queens. And I turned him down. I wasn't interested. I just came to Queens. Figured I want to get a kesher with, Rabbi Harris. What am I doing? Running off to Miami. The only thing I knew of Rabbi Grumblatt was he was, by Luban's Chavrusa. I had no interest. I turned it down. But when in Queens they approached me about Hanukkah time the following year, that Rabbi Sharfman was pleading with them to get guys to come down. The yeshiva, the Beis Medrash, really needed it. Once they uttered those words, Rabbi Minkowitz may not remember, but I sure do. When he said Rabbi Sharfman really asked for it, he really needs it. That's what got me to go. It wasn't Rabbi Grumblatt's words, but it was Rabbi Sharfman. Would you come to Miami? Rabbi Sharfman says, yes. And I came and I spent time from Hanukkah to Pesach that Zaman I was in Iber. I originally planned on staying for a month. I stayed for 5 months. And that was an amazing experience as an older Beis Medrash guy. I'm still a Talmud, but already mature enough. I wasn't a novice, and I saw what was going on in the Beis Medrash. I saw how Rabbi Sharfman was running everything, and it was amazing. And the third dimension I have, which is also quite unique, is Baruch Hashem. I have the schus that they brought me down here to Miami 6 years ago. I had the schus that Rabbi Sharfman wanted me to join him. Rosh Yeshiva wanted me to help Rabbi Sharfman in the running of the Beis Medrash. And what I got in those 3 years that we spent together was priceless. Hands-on shimush from now, not the young Rebbe that I saw when I was in 9th grade, not Rabbi Sharfman in the beginning really of the Miami Beis Medrash in those years when I branched, but already a seasoned veteran, mechanech, running one of the biggest branches, most prestigious in the system, and get hands-on training with everything to see how to interact with Talmidim, how to build a ruach in the yeshiva. And that was amazing. Those are my 3 perspectives of Rabbi Sharfman. And I hope that my words will connect with many of the Talmidim, many of the Chaverim, many of the people who lived that he touched. Hope in some small way my words could affect them. What do you say about Rabbi Sharfman? Really, the proper hesped would be to talk about so many different milas, so many different things. Or probably even to pick, you can't speak about all his milas. I'll speak about 3. That's what probably many speakers would do. I decided more simple, more humble. I'm speaking about one thing. Just one aspect of Rabbi Sharfman, who was obviously a multifaceted Adam Chashav and Gadol. One part of Rabbi Sharfman's life. I happen to think, in my own mind's eye, when I think of Rabbi Sharfman, I think of this perspective. If you ask me to define in one sentence, who is Rabbi Sharfman? Obviously, you include, he was Talmid Chacham, Midos, but one character trait, he was a passionate person. That's who Rabbi Sharfman was. A passionate person. What's a passionate person? If you spent any time around the Beis Medrash in Miami, you know what I mean. A Sharfman would get to speak about a topic, and he would get going and go on and on and on about the topic. And his face would turn red. You know, I wouldn't use the words fire coming out of him, but it was. He got so excited about topics. And that energy, that excitement just filled the room. I called one of his Talmidim, reached out to multiple Talmidim. One of them, Hanan Meirov, I asked him, I'm talking about Rabbi Sharfman being a passionate person. Do you have any stories? I was preparing for this tonight. I didn't have as much time. I called him Motzi Shabbos. Without breathing, without taking a breath, he went on straight for 8 minutes. He would have gone on for another 80 minutes. I just had to stop him. I'm like, okay. But without taking a breath, that's where Rabbi Sharfman spoke. He just spoke. He gave over kol atzmosai tomarna, every fiber in my being. Just gave it over. That's what happened when he spoke. When he spoke about Torah, when he spoke about Musar, Yer Shamayim, it just flowed from him. This passion, I think in yeshiva we saw when he spoke, but who adin? We saw that passion when he acted, when he performed mitzvahs, whether it was his own limud Torah, tefillah, interacting with Talmidim, or chesed. Talmidim, one of Bishop Rubinstein told me a story, and how one time it was already time for Seder, and he was in the dorm, and he was playing with the guitar. The manner in which Rabbi Sharfman got into the Beis Medrash, he was passionately dedicated to his Talmidim. He was passionately sensitive to his Talmidim. It wasn't just he was a sensitive person. He lived it. He didn't just rope them back into the Beis Medrash. He was like, oh, you learn how to play guitar. Show me a chord. And he started singing some Shlomo Karbach song with him. And then, okay, time for Seder. I remember there was a time, a few of the Chaver were sitting outside. Time for Seder. They were sitting out by the bench, right by the back awning of the Beis Medrash. And, okay, we're both sides, time for Seder. He just couldn't do it. He sat down with them and they posed for a picture. I could tell you that picture is treasured by the 3 Talmidim that are in it. For the rest of their lives, that's Rabbi Sharfman. He sat down on the bench with them and brought them back into the benches of the Beis Medrash. It's just a passionate love for Talmidim came across. Rabbi, I'm going to stop listening to the football game. I'll stop playing guitar. I'll stop singing outside of the shmoozy. You want me to come in? I'm coming. That's how he did it. His chesed. Our story is someone moved to North Miami Beach. A Sharfman's talking to the person in shul. Oh, you just moved. Oh, do you have everything? The story had it. The person said, oh, not everything yet. My truck didn't come. Last night we didn't exactly sleep on mattresses. Sharfman's like, you didn't sleep on mattresses. The Chavodo Ba'atzmo went around the town schlepping mattresses, finding mattresses for this family. So for the 1 or 2 nights, the little time they have till their truck arrives, they should sleep b'kavadik. He didn't just get someone else to do it. He did it all himself. Chas v'shalom, I get someone else to do it. Now he's going to be a chesed case to everybody. Why would a person want to feel like that? Supreme sensitivity, but passion, dedication, devotion. That's how he did chesed. There's a yid that came to the yeshiva. He was a mechaber svarim. Baruch Hashem, he wrote a sefer that a lot of Bnei Yeshiva benefited from. Sharfman gave this person, so much kavod. Wow, the Bnei Yeshiva love your sefer and this. So he came to Florida. He came back the next day with his wife and his kids because it made such an impact on him. Older Hasidic Yid. People in the room remember this story. But it made such an impact how he was treated by Rabbi Sharfman. The love just came from him. He's like, I gotta show this to my family. Someone appreciates what I'm doing. That's a passionate person. That's Rabbi Sharfman. So I've been working on this idea. Rabbi Sharfman's a passionate person. Where's it come from? What midah would you say Rabbi Sharfman excelled in that he was so passionate? Right? You go through Sefer Orchos Tzadikim, Rabbi Yisrael's list of midos. Which midah is this midah of passion? Right? It doesn't matter if it's natural, how much did he work on himself? I don't know. But what midah is it? How do you touch it up? Is it zrizos? He had a certain love. The Mela came out? Maybe. I think I found a chazal that depicts this idea of what I saw in Rabbi Sharfman. There's a medrash, there's a sifri in Parshas Ves Kanan, Parsha of Kriya Shema, and darshins the hemshach of the two psukim that we say every day in Kriya Shema, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha. And right after that, we write, Torah writes, V'hoyu dvar me'ila asher nochi mitzavcha etz chamayom. What's the shaykhs between these two psukim? So Zok the Sifri, that what brings about Avas Hashem, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha, it comes from V'hayu advar me'ela. Teina advar me'ela al levavecha, shemitoch kach, you put these words in your heart, at the makers mishayav al. You'll recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the Rambam, when he quotes this idea in the Sefer HaMitzvot, takes it further. He says, when you misbonein in Hashem's Torah and Hashem's mitzvos, he says, "V'nena b'asagaso b'tachas hanav," and then you have a certain enjoyment. You have a certain oneg in understanding HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah. V'zosi ha'ava michiyevas. This is Avas Hashem. And I found that Rabbi Isaac Sher in Chelek Gimel, the Lekut Sichos Musar, explains this medrash, this sifri, this shot of the Rambam, that when a person fully dahers Torah and mitzvahs, he has a clarity in it. He doesn't have some superficial learning of it, some shitchias understanding. He has real havana. It's clear to him. Baruch Kichama, clear as the sunshine in Florida. When you have that clarity, memela, it will give birth in a person feelings of ava, of tainug, of enjoyment, and that will connect him with Hashem. That will lead to avas Hashem. Remember, Isaac Sher makes a point. People make a mistake. You think the midah of avas Hashem is only one of the higher madregos of the Mesilas Yesharim, and it's a super madrega that only Chasidim, Tzadikei Olam could touch, could get near. Says Dr. Isaac Sher, this madrega is really within the realm of every one of us to reach. We all have shaykhs to this midah. We all could reach this midah. The reason why most people don't is they didn't fulfill the first t'nai. Divrei Torah weren't al levavecha with clarity, with the utmost havana and understanding. But once you have the clarity, then the taina, the ava, just flows. When Rabbi Sharfman got the Divrei Torah clear, that memela became etched into him. was part of him. You couldn't take it away. You'd be ripping out his heart. The Torah was entrenched in him. It was so deep, so solid. Memela, you're talking about a Torah concept? He became passionate about it. But both say, how could you do that? That's Torah. Why did he become aflame? Why did he become so excited? Because the Torah was part of him. When he dahired a slabotka shmuz and chesed, it wasn't, okay, it's a nice shmuz. I could say this over when we get to Parshas Vayera. I have a nice shmuz to say over at the Shabbos table. I could quote the Rosh Hashiva more than others. I got more shmuzim. It was much more than that. He lived it. He got it. It was full Havana. Full Havana in his understanding. Memela gives a person a love, an excitement, a passion. This is Torah. And if this is Torah, there's nothing else. This is how you have to live your life. And that's how I was able to do it. I think this idea of Rabbi Sharfman as a passionate person had a tremendous nafkamina on his Talmidim. Tremendous nafkamina. I'll start with the story. Erev Shabbos, Sharfman's Talmidim, Yitzi Shaps, and I spoke. And he told over, we talk about Rabbi Sharfman's passion. And he said over that Rabbi Sharfman had a way, when he said things, people listened. It was etched into people. It became part of us. People listened. It had an effect. How does that happen? Chazal say, there's one concept, what type of Torah gets ingrained in a person lives by it. It's the concept of Girsa Diankasa. It's Gemara and Shabbos. Torah that you learn when you're younger, that Torah is a part of you. Just today, I'm sitting there during laning. Parshas Kisisa happens to be my Bar Mitzvah Parsha. So the Torah is reading it. As I'm hearing the laning, I'm hearing, just hit me. My Bar Mitzvah teacher was Rabbi Chaim Lu. So it's inside. It's actually now an older brother-in-law of Rabbi Sharfman. When I hear the Parsha, I'm taken back. As a kid, 12 years old, 13 years old, studying the Parsha, hearing the voice of my Bar Mitzvah teacher. This is how you say it. Girsa Diankasa. You could be years past your Bar Mitzvah. You don't forget it. That's Girsa Diankasa. You have a Rabbi in 3rd grade. He teaches a kid. What's the impact? I remember my 3rd grade Rabbi. It's there. It's part of you. The Torah you learn. When you're younger, it just goes in. That's the advantage younger Rebbeim have. Rebbeim in the younger grades. But Rebbeim in the older grades, oh boy, it's not simple. I remember one time in high school, Hachberg, Zalgazunzain, gave a shmooze, and it was very inspiring. I remember, I was an older kid in high school already. I was already seeing the reactions of other chevra. I said, Rebbe, how do you get, inspired to speak? Look, kids are high school kids. You give a good speech, but I'm sure a few minutes later they're, So Achberg said, look, you're planting seeds. You're trying somewhat to do it. But it is very hard to impact the Talmud, especially an older Talmud. Not sure it's, okay, you're right, Girsa Diankasa, the Rashiva has a chiddush. It expands, You could have Girsa Diankasa as a 20-year-old too. relative to later in life. But still, it's hard to get in. How did Rabbi Sharfman get into his Talmidim? I think the answer is it's Chazal. Kemayim panim el panim, kain leva adam alpam. Rabbi Sharfman, as we stated before, personally, he was so passionate about Torah and mitzvahs. It was a part of him. It was edged in so deep. He had this tremendous, maybe you could call it an Avos Hashem. That came through to the Talmidim. We saw it. We felt it. And it went in. Yitzi Shaps remembers one particular story. It says, Rabbi Sharfman was talking during Musar one day. Guys have to have derech eretz. When the janitor is mopping the floor, you can't just walk through the room right after he mops it. He takes pride in mopping the floor. That's what he's doing all day. And you just casually just walk by and not even notice, oh, I'm sorry, it's wet, Once in a while say, I'm sorry. How can you do it? Okay, Rabbi Sharfman said that. Yitzi Shaps says he remembers that he just watched, a little while later in the day, that scene was unfolding in yeshiva, and the guy in yeshiva could not bring himself to walk down that hallway when the guy was mopping the floor. So Rabbi Sharfman was a type of Rebbe that the words that he said had an impact on his Talmidim. And that's quite a schos, quite something that is very hard to achieve. I think his passion to his Talmidim was also another aspect. I came across this in my notes from 20 years ago when I was in yeshiva. Rabbi Sharfman said a shmooze. It was a medrash in Toldos, Parsha Samachay, where the medrash depicts there was a Rav who looked like he was about to be killed. And somebody recognized him. This is a person who went off the derech. And he was being Machal Shabbos, riding a horse. And he said disparaging words towards his Rebbe, towards this Rav. And what was the Rebbe's response? He tried at that moment to give him tolchacha, to set him straight, and to change his life. And Rabbi Sharfman pointed out, this person was at this step. This is he's off the derech. You're about to be killed. It's over. Now it doesn't sound like the time to give Nacha Musar Shmuz. It's Dr. Rabbi Sharfman, that's a Rebbe. You never give up on the Talmud. And it could be, you're looking bad. You're about to be killed. It's on your deathbed. Zu Torah v'zu schara. But no, I can never give up on the Talmud. It's interesting. In yeshiva, you come across Chedushim, you know how to say a shmooze. But if you notice, the shmoozing that people say, a lot of times, why other people might see the same chazal, the same training, but there's a certain personal slant. You deher it. Rabbi Sharfman dehered the shmooze. It wasn't just mechadashet. You never give up on the Talmud. His passionate love for Talmidim was so strong, he never gave up on Talmidim. It didn't matter. It could be after Pesach, the guy hasn't learned all year. Come on. He's coasting. He's going to be one of those tourists Rabbi Sharfman talked about. Rabbi Sharfman didn't give up. With every ounce of strength that he had, he tried giving over and affecting the life of a Talmud. That's the effect of a passionate Rebbe on his Talmidim. One more aspect. So Rabbi Sharfman was a passionate person, and that was something that he gave over to his Talmidim. The passion came through. That's why the Torah impacted us. That's why he never gave up. But Lamaisa, what's our legacy? What should we remember from Rabbi Sharfman? What should we take from Rabbi Sharfman? I remember Eliezer is already a chassan, he's married. Eliezer Gewurtz called me up after Rabbi Sharfman was nifter. Called me from his dira, he was learning the mirror then. Rabbi, what would Rabbi Sharfman want me to be makabel? I was so blown away, to hear that's what's on his mind months later. This is months after the Patira. This is what he's focused on. Amazing. Don't remember exactly what I said there, but I thought about it better. Eliezer, here's the answer. I think what a Sharfman would want is for us to live life as a Torah Jew, as a Ben Torah, but to live Torah with a passion. He loved the words of the title of Rabbi Schaefer's book, Stop Surviving, Start Living. You could go through life as a Jew, but you could live Yiddishkeit. You could live Torah mitzvahs. That's what he wanted. We find in this week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem informs him that they're a Nichshel Me'egel. And Moshe, his mindset, this is Moshe Rabbeinu, the Ohev Yisrael, L'cheini na misifracha asher kasafta. He's the passionate leader of Klal Yisrael. Sforno learns that Moshe Rabbeinu was dead set. Once he comes down and spends time with the Bnei Yisrael, he'll get them all back to do tshuva. That's what Moshe thought. Unfortunately, Vayarsa Egel Mecholos Vayicha Araf Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu's Havamina was he was going to make a mapecha, he's going to get them to do tshuva. When he came down and saw what was going on, he said, it's over. What made him switch to the Zakta Sforno? He saw that the Bnei Yisrael were enjoying, they were happy, they were having too much fun in their Avera. I must point out that the simcha, or in this sense, fortunately, the simcha that a person has in doing an Avera is such a dangerous thing. It's more dangerous than the Avera itself. The Avera itself, Moshe Rabbeinu was convinced, I'm going to be machzer them b'tshuva. But once you add the component that they're happy doing it like that, they don't feel bad, they don't feel guilt right after they do that. There's no hope. And if that's true in the negative, kol shekain in the positive. If we do a mitzvah, but we do it, we live life as a Ben Torah, with a simcha, it's alive, it's part of us. That's with that passion. Okay, maybe we won't have the same passion as Rabbi Sharfman. Maybe we're not able to get to the clarity in Torah. We all could. But on some level, we should get that. We should get that passion, that drive, that excitement. And if we do that, we'll connect with him la'olam vad. L'maisa these yisodos, the yisod of v'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, that pasuk in Shema, so hayu dvar me'ela shenoch mitzavcha hayom. Those words, that's Rabbi Sharfman. He lived chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol ma'odecha. Ibn Ezra says that ma'odecha means ma'od ma'od. Rabbi Sharfman, it was so passionate, he said it again and again. It made an impact. He was a passionate person. Perhaps he got that passion from the clarity in Torah. It was imbibed in him. It infected his Talmidim. He gave over Torah in a passionate way. That's why it impacted our hearts. Rabbi Sharfman never gave up on a Talmud. He believed in them. He was passionate about their success. And our legacy to continue that, whatever we can, to do our mitzvahs, that itself would be a tremendous chus in the Nishmas. Be'ez Hashem, we should all grow from this experience, and Be'ez Hashem, we should all become greater people because of it. Thank you very much for listening.